Hello and welcome to this edition of the Halcyon podcast. My name's Lorne Risley. I'm going to be your host for this episode. Welcome! Stick your feet up, get comfy, set yourself down. Have you had a good day? I've had a reasonably good day. I've won 2 Twitter arguments in the space of 24 hours, so I'm feeling pretty damn peachy. Let's talk about a couple of things. Summarize the WWE Super Showdown first of all. We'll then do one last final preview of Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. We'll talk about a couple of other things, and we shall talk about channel updates, because I love me some channel updates. So, first of all, Super Showdown. Interesting show. Not WWE's strongest, if you want my opinion. Again, as I said, if anyone was following my tweets on the issue, it feels very, very reminiscent of, if not the greatest Royal Rumble, certainly Great Balls of Fire a couple of years ago. It just feels like one of those odd events that they've thrown together for the sake of making some go-around money. It just doesn't have a good feel to it. I mean, the one takeaway that really hit me, because unfortunately I don't get a chance to watch live Raw and SmackDown every week. It just doesn't happen, and the catch-ups are 3 weeks out of date, so it makes it almost stupid at that point to revisit and watch Raw, because it's so far gone by that point that everything's moved on immensely. The one thing that I took away was the immense waste of talent that Renee Young is at the moment. At the moment, she is, and I'll quote one of my tweets, she's the new Byron Saxton. She does nothing, precisely nothing. She adds nothing to the broadcast team. The only difference between the two, and the only distinction, is that Corey Graves doesn't lambast her, doesn't emasculate her, doesn't relentlessly destroy her at every opportunity. And that's it. That's it. And the only reason for that is because she's a woman. That's the only reason. The fact that he doesn't feel like he can trade barbs, which is, again, the fact that it's the women's evolution, Okay, well, why can't they trade barbs? Why can't she smack him down if he's going to try to slap her down? She's the face color commentator. He's the heel color commentator. Let's have a balance here. Let's go back and forth. I mean, she tried. There was a part later on in the show where she starts doing the yeses, and she says, I can't wait for Daniel Bryan to smack him in the face, and da-da-da-da-da. It still did nothing for me. It made her look 10. It wasn't the nuanced and professional approach. This is, okay, here's the problem with Byron Saxton, the role that Renee Young currently fills. They're the 10-year-old child in the audience. They're the ones, in fact, I remember her at one point in the pay-per-view exclaiming, alley-oop. I mean, if that's her, that's depressing. But if it isn't her, which is my fingers are crossed for, who the fuck sat down and wrote that and thought that sounded even remotely intelligent? Remotely existentially profound or entertaining. It was terrible. You need to let her do Cole's job. I know that's a massive step up, and I know that's a massive change, and I know Cole's established and blah, blah, blah. But Renee Young has the talent to do Cole's job. So why not let her have the run at SmackDown? If this idea is to distinguish between the two teams, man, can you not have a clearer distinction than Cole and Renee Young? And who better for them to learn off each other? Renee Young can bring a sense of enthusiasm and a sense of youth to the role, ironic as the name Young, the name Young is. And Renee Young can learn from someone who's been in the business 20 plus years. I mean, it seems to make sense to me. I mean, better still, this might be a real long stretch, and I don't know how likely it would be. Keep Cole and Graves on Raw as the color commentary team, as Corey is color commentary, Cole is play-by-play. Have Renee Young on SmackDown and bring back the King. Put him alongside her, and I guarantee you within a couple of months you'll have two teams that are just as popular as each other. Maybe Graves is good, King is the best there's ever been, in my opinion, as far as color is concerned. Paul Heyman is a close second. But god damn, you need to, I mean, put it this way. if it's not King, it's Paul Heyman, because it sure as hell ain't JBL, it sure as hell ain't Booker T, it sure as hell ain't it isn't Corey Graves, it sure as hell isn't Booker T. It isn't Byron Saxton. It isn't Taz, with all due respect. He's good, but he always needed... I mean, look at Cole and Taz as a perfect... They were a good team. They were a very, very good team in their day. But the commentary just is so bad these days. You just tune it out because it adds nothing. They don't help to tell the story. They react like the audience reacts. I'm looking at them for expert analysis. I'm looking at them for them to tell me the story, to weave the thread, to lead me one way and then the wrestlers to dart us the next. Yet all I hear is the same thing. And again, another commentary on the another point on the commentary. Every single match, without fail, every single match. My God, this is one of the most hard-hitting matches I have ever seen. Or, well, that's why he's considered to be one of the greatest of all time. You can't say those things in every single match and not dilute the product. You can't say those things in every single match and have those phrases mean anything. If you walked around and called every fighter, if you want to take the press conference, and Khabib, we'll just jump right ahead to that for a second, you can't put Conor in the same and say he's one of the best in the world. And then immediately after that, you say, oh yeah, well, Tony Ferguson's one of the best in the world as well, and so is Dustin Poirier, and actually Volkov's actually pretty good. He's not the best in the world yet, but he's certainly the tier below, and yeah, blah, blah, blah. There are tiers to these things. The best in the world is the best in the world. Yeah, it might be close, but you certainly you don't oversaturate that sentiment by saying everyone's the best. They're all superstars. They're all amazing. Yeah, but some are more amazing than others, and that's when you say, typically speaking, these guys are amazing. These guys are unfortunately average, but will accentuate aspects of their game. Again, to bring it back, JR and King used to do this all the time. JR was a master of this. Steve Blackman, is he winning any titles? No, but when he entered the ring, what did JR do? He emphasized the absolute lethality with which Steve Blackman would utilize kicks, quick punches, his weapons, how tough he was, and then would then get back to because then you've got a heel that you can work with. The commentary in these matches usually amounts to something along the lines of, okay, so here comes insert catchphrase / nickname that we've put on this person. Great. The one that is the worst is the big dog. I mean, and come on, no prizes for guessing. That's what I was going to say. But it's so the fact that it was a throwaway nickname for the Undertaker back in the day, and the Yard was something that was only part of one of his gimmicks, or at least a variation of the gimmick of the Undertaker, the American Badass persona. But that was considered to be the worst persona of the Undertaker ever. And yet they think that that's the way to go with Roman Reigns because it's a play on the Hounds of Justice, which in of itself, by the way, makes no sense. Because at what point in the Shield's history were they really about they dress as a SWAT team? But that doesn't make them about justice. That makes them about dressing in black. So WWE's got a weird fixation with forcing their commentary teams down a certain way, and I for one believe, because I sounded harsh. I remember reading it back and saying, wow, I sound like a real prick to Renee Young, but here's the thing, it's the truth. The whole broadcast, I felt it was a waste of her talents being there. Just let Corey Graves and Cole do it. Or get rid of Cole and let Renee Young and Corey Graves do it. Imagine that for a second. Imagine if you had the balls to let Renee Young take over from Cole doing play-by-play and keep Graves there. Imagine that for a second, because they're good friends. You see that they've got a relationship off camera. JR and King had a great relationship off camera. It seems to me like all the parts are there to make a successful commentary team that satiates the fans and yet has the ability to sell the fuck out of every single product that the WWE wants them to sell. And yet, for some reason, they've got this oral fixation on having a fucking 3-man booth. And when you've got a 3-man booth, they're talking over each other constantly. No one can get their shit in. In fact, towards the back end of that pay-per-view, I would argue that Renee Young was pushed to the background. She could barely get a word in, and whenever she did, she was stamping on someone else's toes when she was speaking. And when she did finally speak, it was something so boring and vanilla and bland, she might as well have not said it. And that's a crying shame, because when they announced that Renee Young was getting the gig, we all thought, great, NXT talent, tons of experience, has done a million skits within the WWE, different shows in the WWE. She has got tons of experience. She's got the enthusiasm, she's got a great look, she's got a great persona. Stick her in the commentary team and let her do something. Let her just do her thing. And what? No. Couple of months down the line, 3 months down the line, however long it's been, no, she's part of this attempt to seem like, yeah, we're putting the emphasis on the women. Really? You're putting the emphasis on the women, are you? Let me counteract that, because I'm gonna come back to the pay-per-view, but in fact, no, let's jump back to the pay-per-view. Let's talk about one of the matches that did my nut. Ronda Rousey, Brie and Brie Bella and I'm gonna get roasted in the comments if anyone's watching this as a wrestling fan. Brie and something Bella twins. It's in there somewhere, I can't remember. Anyway, the Bella twins and Ronda Rousey versus the Riot Squad. A match has worked. Brie Bella supposedly gets a receipt from Liv Morgan, albeit the receipt wasn't very good. The weird tongue thing was odd. She tried to grab Liv Morgan's tongue, but Liv Morgan insisted on keeping moving her tongue. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to grab someone's tongue really hard without hurting them. And obviously you're not trying to hurt the other wrestler when you're wrestling, otherwise you get criticised on social media by horny 14-year-olds. Anyway, point being is that in the match, you had some spots between the twins and the Riot Squad, and then Ronda Rousey gets the hot tag. She comes in, she runs Roughhouse through 2 of the Riot Squad, gets a third in an attempt for an armbar, and then gets hit from behind. The 2 members then bring her into the middle of the ring, attempt to get set up, and then Rousey grabs both of them by one of the arms, twists them onto the floor, and then does a double armbar. Couple of issues with this. Number one, she leaned backwards with her arms in between her legs. Now, I'm sorry, that is not an armbar. That's not how an armbar works, and I'm pretty sure someone that trained MMA for as long as Ronda Rousey did would know this. Secondly, again, where is this idea that the women's revolution is actually happening? And people are going to say, well, hang on a second, you got Ronda Rousey beating everyone up and she's proceeded to beat, yeah, one woman who has MMA experience beat up 2 women's competitors on her own, having incapacitated the third of a group that's strong enough supposedly to take down Ronda Rousey. And yet, she's beating up 3 women on her own. How is that bigging up the division as a whole? Put it this way, when in the men's division, let's say, because we'll try and link it again. We're being progressive here. So let's talk about it for a second. Let's try and think of an equivalent situation back in the day. Let's say it was Rikishi and Too Cool versus Hardcore Holly, Bob Holly, and strong middle heel. I want to say Jericho, but he maybe doesn't have that push. No, I tell you what, screw it. Let's go DX, Triple H, and the Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, New Age Outlaws, there they are, versus, let's have Brock Lesnar. I know I'm skewing the timelines here, but Brock Lesnar and Edge and Christian. Tricky one, tricky to but anyway, I'm trying to pick equivalent members for each team and to try and illustrate a point. Would you ever imagine that Brock Lesnar is going to defeat both New Age Outlaws by a double DDT? Or a double F5 or something along those lines? No, he'd do the move to 2 of them, sure. But he'd pin one of them. Why do I say this? It's because the rest of the women's division is not getting the due credit it deserves right now. It's being messed around with a lot. And Renee Young is an excellent example of a woman that was elevated to a position and then had the ball taken off her. She was not allowed to do the job that we all wanted her to do. When Rousey came in, I genuinely thought, and maybe this was just me, and maybe I'm being too progressive here, maybe I'm being too hopeful. When she put the beating on Triple H at WrestleMania, yes, fine, she didn't ultimately get the win over Triple H. She still got the armbar on Stephanie and made her tap. Okay, fine. But in that match, Triple H was getting his ass kicked by Ronda Rousey at one point. At that point, can she not take a run at the US title or the IC title? Was that beyond the realm of possibility? I mean, considering it's Ziggler at the time, who's in and around that area. Maybe not Rollins, because I know you want him to go up to the world title scene at some point, but Ziggler's time has come and gone as far as the world title scene is concerned. Jinder, that would be great exposure for Jinder. I don't think you'd want him working with her in case he hurts her, but still. In any event, you can't elevate Ronda using the belt for once? Because at the moment, I feel like the belts don't elevate anyone, and yet that's what they're used for. No one wins the IC championship at the moment and feels like they're elevated. I don't feel like that proves that they're better than anyone else. They're not a champion. They don't have an air of invincibility or even superiority to them. The WWE title. It feels like what the IC title used to be, to me. It feels like it's the workhorse's title. The Universal title doesn't have a legitimacy about it because it isn't going to the guy of the company. It's going to who Vince McMahon wants to be the guy of the company now, not who the fans choose. He picked Brock Lesnar. Fair enough. He does good pay-per-view ratings. He certainly piques intrigue, and he has a lot of legitimacy. And you spent a lot of time and money bigging up that legitimacy. I understand having that championship there. After a while, though, people do get tired of the belt not being defended on a regular basis, and when it is, it's a foregone conclusion. You can say Goldberg all you like, but once Goldberg won, people could predict how it was going to go at Mania. So here's what I put forward. Why was it so bad to maybe have Rousey not go for one of those two titles? Let her hold the IC title for a bit. She's a Rowdy Roddy Piper fan, if I'm not mistaken, having robbed the gimmick pretty much wholesale. People say, oh, she didn't steal the gimmick, it's an emulation. Oh, bitch, please. Bitch, please. She's the same logo, the same jacket, the same pattern on her and the same colour scheme, except what the insult there is that Rowdy Roddy Piper was good on the microphone. Ronda can't cut a promo to save her life. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. She can't cut a promo. Whenever she does, she comes across as a heel. And yet she's being pushed as a mega babyface. If you want to push her as a heel, and let's all be honest, Rowdy Roddy Piper was always better as a heel. I don't think he was ever a particularly good babyface. He had some good moments and he was charming in that scallywag kind of way, but he was a heel. You don't smash someone over the head with a coconut and call yourself the good guy. So the fact that she's a babyface when she's utilising what was a heel's persona and gimmick, and you want to say that she's a trailblazer or whatever you want to say, I'm sorry, no. The way to get Ronda Rousey over was, and should still be, the MMA route. She should have been the female Brock Lesnar. Why? Because we've never seen anything like that before. Shayna Baszler's killing it with that gimmick. She has a legitimacy that can't be distinguished or argued. She has an impact. She has a danger to her whenever she comes in the ring. And you mean to tell me that Ronda Rousey can't have that same air of legitimacy? You labelling her the baddest woman on the planet? And I said so in my tweets. Baddest woman on the planet. Okay, cool. Right up until the moment she's in the vague vicinity of a microphone and someone's asking about her MMA losses. Then she becomes tremendously delicate. Then she becomes someone who ain't that fond of talking anymore. In fact, isn't even that fond of fighting. In fact, will do anything she can at that point to avoid you. Chris Cyborg is the baddest woman on the planet, bar none at the moment. I've seen some of her goddamn workout videos and they're frankly terrifying. I think she was deadlifting 300 and something odd pounds on one of her videos for reps. For those of you who don't understand that, that's probably 110, 115 kilograms off the top of my head. I remember because when I was still going to the gym and trying to get back some strength, I put that weight on a bar. And let me tell you, that wasn't nothing. In fact, it helped my traps out quite well actually. I had a pretty decent set of shoulders for a time. Anyway, I digress. Point being is, they've missed a massive boat with Ronda Rousey, if you ask me. It's only a matter of time before the fans turn on her and the gimmick gets old. It's been less than a year. I'd argue that at the back end of this next year, it'll run its course. If she's not already signed a contract that's only 2 years, I'd be surprised if she lasts another year. But anyway, women's evolution, it's a crock. It was shown to be a crock when you had the Greatest Royal Rumble and no women were allowed to perform. Not even Stephanie McMahon was allowed was excused the indignities that the Saudi government wanted to impose on women in the organization. And that's so sad. Because it's a question of money. Well, the company, what's best for business? Okay, then you've got to give up your marketing gimmick. Because it doesn't ring true, it's bullshit. The Be a Star stuff, fine. I understand that gimmick has been tried and tested as well, and we all can, with the JBL situation, we can all understand to a degree that, man, yeah, they tolerate bullying. In fact, they perpetuate it. But the sexism thing, I really did expect WWE to be better than that, and I'm still not over it. And I have no dog in that fight. If I wanted to be a WWE wrestler tomorrow, the only things that would be stopping me were a lack of a sellable gimmick and a decent body type. And I'm pretty small for a WWE wrestler. It's not my gender that's going to stop me from performing on a show in the Middle East. And that's sad. That's depressing. Because this is the company that's purporting to be doing more and more for women's wrestling every day. The Mixed Match Challenge, Evolution, more all women's pay-per-views, the first ever women's Royal Rumble, the first ever women's Money in the Bank, more main events of Raw. And yet, the little things. Why can't there be women in factions? Sanity back in the day was an excellent faction. Had a female member. Did they seem weaker because they had a female member? Were they worried that if the female member got involved in a tussle involving other men that she might get hurt? No! So I fail to understand this logic here. And it annoys me, it depresses me because there are little girls around the world now that are looking at people like Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, even someone like, until they work Google, people like Paige, who they look at as these powerful, distinct, athletic, and competitive women. And yet, all of that progress, all of that storytelling, all of that selling is undermined in a few quick strokes. When you just pick away at the surface just a few seconds, and it makes me sad. But anyway, I've ranted on the women's division enough. Point is, WWE, treat the women's roster with the respect it deserves. And you want to know how you do that? Treat it like the men's division. Treat it in exactly the same way. No preferential treatment, no subservient bullshit. You put them in matches that you think speak to their strengths and their marketability and whether or not they'll get over with the crowd. You don't go, we can't have a woman looking too strong unless it's Ronda Rousey because we're paying her so much motherfucking money. How are you ever going to build a proper star that the young people, specifically little girls who are looking for a hero like I was looking for a hero when I was a little boy in the WWE, unless you allow them to just follow the natural progression of their characters and accentuate their strengths as performers rather than going, well, yeah, but it's company policy. Anyway, rant over. Talking about that match, so the Bella Twins go over the Riot Squad with Ronda Rousey with a double arm bar, which wasn't sunk in the slightest. So a shame. That's skipping ahead a little bit in terms of the way the matches were sorted out. As far as the first match on the card, New Day won. Excellent move by Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. Almost a variation of the coup de grace with Xavier Woods doing like a back code breaker. I forget the name of it, unfortunately. I'm not that well versed on the names of the moves these days. But it was excellently finessed move from Kofi Kingston there to pick up the win, albeit with some interference because it is the New Day. So even though they're tweeners, so they're technically faces at the moment, but you know they used a heel tactic, so whatever. Becky Lynch, that win, match was going well enough. I did predict that Charlotte Flair would pick up the win, albeit Becky Lynch would lose by disqualification. The belt hit, though? Yeah, bad. Not good. The idea being that Charlotte is put Becky in a figure four. Figure four is locked in. She's trying to bridge for the figure eight, can't quite do so. Becky Lynch can't reach the ropes, but there's a title in the ring. She reaches for the title, and she's supposed to hit Charlotte with the title, but she can't reach. So what does she do? She slaps her with the belt, like almost whips her with it. Yeah, I know that it's still a foreign object and it's still enough to get the DQ, but I don't understand why that's the finish. It just felt limp. It just felt a bit light. That's all for the quote unquote hard hitting match. But anyway, nevertheless, that was me 2 for 2. And then, John Cena and his Dennis Menace haircut. Yeah, bless him. Yeah, there's a reason why he's been going with a crude cut all these years. I still think there's a way to make Cena's head look not so weird with hair. It's the same way I genuinely think there's a way of making John Cena look normal in like clothes that aren't Jords in a preposterously colourful t-shirt, but we just haven't found the right combination yet. Cena's new move, the six move of doom. I hate that, whatever the fuck that is. It's a massive middle finger up to the fans. That is a terrible move. But it's WWE, so they're most likely aware of that fact and doing it because they know it annoys the fans. Typical Cena address as well, which was boring and bland. Let's get through some of this. Joe versus AJ, good match. Interesting ending with Joe supposedly popping his knee and then AJ going on to pick up the calf crusher to exploit that injury and win. A particular moment I really enjoyed in that match though was having sustained the injury, Joe, crawling over to the corner, the referee checking on him, Joe exclaiming to the referee, it's popped, and AJ picking up on this. AJ very calmly and very, very deliberately moves across to the referee and moves him away from Joe because I think it either was a no DQ match or something, no time limit match or something. So there was some leeway there that AJ could show some slightly meaner streak, and that almost I commented this on Twitter. Anton Chigurh moving over, stalking Joe as he lays in the corner and telling him there's consequences to doing this to my family. That's storytelling. Excellent, absolutely fantastic. That's why AJ is one of the best in the business. But ultimately, won the match with the calf crusher. Then I go on to rant a little bit about commentary again, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, more on that. Yeah, it's a shame that Joe didn't win for title purposes, but I understand that this is... the feud is going to perpetuate one of two ways. Either Joe is the one that's going to interfere in the Daniel Bryan and AJ match, which we'll talk about in a second, or Joe will. Or Miz will. There's definitely going to be interference in that match. AJ's not losing that belt there. Someone's going to lose by DQ. Most likely Miz is going to interfere if I had to pick. And then Joe will lay some other legitimate claim. I don't think AJ is going to be facing anyone else as it goes up to Survivor Series. I think Survivor Series would be a good pay-per-view to end that feud, but we'll see. Yeah, a shame though. There's also the Iconics went over Asuka and Naomi. Yeah, I was pissed about that. I get the Iconics, or whatever the fuck they call her, from Australia. Big frickin' whoop. Asuka, relegated to effectively the undercard, eating a loss. Undefeated in over 500 days in NXT, champion for most of it. Absolutely excellent performer, hell of a worker. Can't get a look in on the main roster. Unbelievable. But anyway, never mind. So let's keep going. So that was the Brie match. We won't talk about that. Blah, 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 blah. So, Miz and Daniel Bryan. Interesting. Very, very quick match. Miz picks up the win. Bryan picks up the win from Miz with the small package. Not a lot of offense. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I'm not sure where they're going with that just yet, but the only other takeaway I can have from this match is that obviously they've gone back and forth with cheating from a previous pay-per-view in which they faced each other. Not Hell in the Cell where Brie was involved. It was the one prior where Miz hit Bryan with a foreign object of some description to knock him out and picked up the win that way. It doesn't feel like justice, and it certainly didn't feel like Bryan won. It feels like he nicked a win. So maybe they're playing off that, I don't know. It certainly doesn't feel like the conclusive win that it needs to be for the feud to be over, hence why I'm saying that The Miz will interfere more likely than Joe will. So we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see how they build that feud with AJ and Bryan, if they're directly confronting each other or if they're still going to stay with their respective partners and just build to the match some other way. Buddy Murphy wins. Don't know a lot about the guy. I liked the match. Wasn't a particularly good example of a 205 match from what I understand. But still, interesting match. Not a lot to say. Buddy Murphy picks up the win over Cedric Alexander to become the new Cruiserweight champion. The only title switch on the card, I might add. Then you come on to the Shield versus Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre, and Dolph Ziggler. Two things. Drew McIntyre. When did he get so motherfucking... He is an absolute unit. He is huge. He is gargantuan. He is massive. And you only realise this when you stick him next to Braun Strowman, who is the only true monster on the card right now. And yet there's a distinction of, I want to say, if I'm being real generous, 3 inches between the two in terms of height. And in terms of weight, there can't be more than... if you want to say that Drew Galloway isn't... I'd say he's a... I don't know what he's... I'm going to have to find out. I want to know how much he weighs. Because he is huge. He is absolutely huge. He's 115 kilograms. So to put it in perspective, he's the same weight as Jinder Mahal is right now, and he's 15 kilograms heavier than Dolph Ziggler. He's billed at 265. So compare that with Braun. Let's have a look. He's billed at 174 kilograms. So they reckon there's a good 60 kilogram difference between the two. That's not nothing. And yet, you put them side by side, and I gotta be honest, Braun doesn't look that much thicker, and he sure as fuck don't look that much taller. God damn, Drew Galloway's a big old fella, and talented, and athletic, and cuts a hell of a promo, and has a hell of a look. Man, they need to be doing more with him than just putting the goddamn tag straps on him with Ziggler. That's for me, that's to try and keep Ziggler relevant for as long as possible. It's not doing Drew Galloway any favors. But as far as the match is concerned, the story of the match was simple. Would the Shield disintegrate? Would Ambrose turn on Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns? They teased it. Roman Reigns hit a Superman punch. It inexplicably hits a Superman punch on Ambrose, when that's not how punches work. When you throw a punch, you aim at the person and you follow through. You don't hit the person. If you throw a punch and you somehow inexplicably hit someone who stood 2.5 to 3 feet behind that person, I don't know what you were aiming at in the first place, especially if you're jumping in the air. If you're going to jump and hit something, you're going to be pretty certain you're going to hit it, otherwise why did you jump? Anyway, point being, he sends him to the outside. They all come onto the apron the same way that the Shield entered the ring initially to surround the opposing team, with Ambrose in the fourth apron. teasing, and then joins in. Tope Suicida onto, I think it was onto Drew Galloway. And then Braun starts to charge Ambrose on the outside of the ring, and Roman spears Braun through the barricade to atone for his previous transgression. I thought that was a lovely little story they told. The tease of the turn, the justification of the turn was there, but then Roman, again to Roman's credit, he gave us that's a moment. Give us more of those. That is excellent. Give us a moment where Roman is telling a story and the story makes sense. Hey, I'll buy it. I bought it. Good match. Shield ends up winning with Ambrose hitting the dirty deeds on, I want to say, Ziggler. Good match. Good solid match. Seth Rollins didn't really get a lot in there, but at the same time, good match. And then finally, Triple H versus The Undertaker with Kane and Shawn Michaels ringside. This is hard. This is really hard. Right, so here's my big issue with, and this is the pay-per-view this applies to, not just this story. What's the logic? Why Super Showdown? What showdown on this card warrants the word super? Exactly. And also the idea, the last time ever. What do they define as an end of an era match exactly? I'm struggling. Like, why did people want to watch this? You've got two athletically incapable stars now. I don't care if people want to say, oh, well, Triple H is in great shape. He looks fine for a 50-year-old, sure. But he sure as hell ain't been athletically relevant for the last 5 years. Otherwise, he'd still be competing. And he ain't. Because he got better things to do, like running NXT in the creative department and 205 Live and trying to take over from Vince as the creative driving force of the WWE. I want him doing that shit rather than pissing around with someone that we thought had retired 2 years ago. Coming on to the Undertaker for a second, I have to ask, if it's for the love of the game, if it's for the love of wrestling, why is he not on the road? Is it, well, he doesn't want to do the grind? No, he doesn't want to not pick up the big money. He's got it in his head that he can only perform at the big events. And that's it. And I'm here to tell you that's bollocks. You can't tell a story that's not disjointed in the WWE without at least giving them the chance to correct a few. Because here's my big issue. What happened with Cena and Taker? They were both on the card. To my knowledge, Cena hasn't avenged the squash match of WrestleMania. What am I missing there? It's nonsensical. And of course people are going to scream, Lorne, you know why they did it. It's purely for the money. They needed a headline attraction to go to a place to sell out a stadium and make some goddamn money. I know. And doesn't that make you just a bit sad? Doesn't it also make you a bit sad that you bought it anyway? I watched this pay-per-view for two reasons. Number one, I haven't watched a live pay-per-view as it happened in months. Months and months and months. Royal Rumble's probably the only one to make a point apart from WrestleMania to watch live. So the fact that it was occurring in Australia at a time when I could watch it where I wasn't nearly falling asleep was irresistible. But more to the point, I had to see it for myself. And unfortunately, what I saw was a lethargic, slow-paced, non-technical, unentertaining match with a nonsensical finish that sets up a match for no reason than we've got unfinished business. How have you got unfinished business? You've lost to Taker 3 times at WrestleMania. You've not had an interaction with each other for years. Shawn Michaels has been retired for 10 years now? Since WrestleMania 25 or 26? So, Glenn Jacobs is supposed to be running a county in Knoxville, Tennessee. Doesn't he have better things to do than to stand on the ring apron in a mask that doesn't fit him anymore. This whole match stunk to death of cop-out and sell-out, and honestly, these guys have legacies that are worth more than that, or at least to them should be worth more than that. And it was a depressing end to a card that ultimately I feel delivered the little that it could. I'm not going to say it under-delivered or it underperformed. I think that given the storylines that they had coming into this, they did all they could. So I'm not going to hate on them for it. I'm just going to say that I didn't enjoy the last match. I didn't enjoy the Ronda Rousey Riot Squad match. And the few matches I did enjoy, there was nothing spectacular about the card. I wasn't left gobsmacked by any of the moves. AJ doing the flip, rear, almost Stinger death drop backwards was pretty badass, I'll give you that. There are probably a couple of other moves on the night that if I went back and watched, I'd probably give you credit for. Again, the Kofi Xavier Woods spot was good on Cesaro, but overall, just not a particularly entertaining card. Yeah, they'll go into things going forward, but we'll see what happens. So that's 40 minutes of ranting and raving about that pay-per-view done. And I apologise for it. It's just that pay-per-view, man, was just god-awful. Let's talk Conor and Khabib, because we are only a few short hours away before it kicks off. And so, few things. Let's talk about the weigh-ins, and let's talk about the final supposed press conference, albeit the ceremonial weigh-ins were acted as that last confrontation. Weigh-ins. Conor comes in at 154.5 after an hour of waiting. Khabib is the first one to show up, hits 155 on the nose. He's in, he's out, he's gone, he's rehydrating, he's getting fighting fit. They come out yesterday for the ceremonial weigh-in. And Khabib he didn't take his shirt off. At least I don't remember. I don't think he did. I think he kept his hat on as well. And Conor comes out. They try and square them off, but it's clear that Conor is trying to provoke something, so he slaps down on Khabib's hand, tries to do a toe poke kick. Dana's, you can hear audibly saying, "No, don't touch, don't touch, don't touch." So yeah, it's set up well enough. Given everything I've seen, given the ease of which Khabib made weight, the fact that Conor is still attempting to provoke Khabib and Khabib is able to control the situation, the fact that the press conference, most recent press conference, 15 minutes of Khabib having turned up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Vegas. 45 minutes to an hour later from the press conference beginning, Conor turns up. A half an hour, 20-minute discrepancy between when Khabib leaves and Conor arrives. Man, if that wasn't something that Khabib thought of in advance, then he's lucky. But if that's something he thought of in advance, he's a goddamn genius. He knows he can't verbally go toe-to-toe with Conor. So what does he do? Takes that out of the situation altogether. Just takes it out of the equation altogether. Gets his shit in, says what he needs to say, leaves, and lets Conor turn up whenever he turns up. He's not on his time, he's the champion. He can do whatever he wants as far as he turned up on time. If both of the competitors aren't there, then why stick around? And it makes sense. I don't blame him. So the fact that Conor missed again, because it's Conor, because that's him, I get that he's gonna be late because that's his thing. It's like, oh, well, I'm important, they'll have to wait for me and blah, blah, blah. It's a power trip, it's a mind game, everyone can figure that out. But the fact that he didn't utilize that opportunity because he thought that Khabib would be polite enough to sit around and wait was a loss for Conor. He didn't look bad in his side of the conference, but he certainly didn't have an opportunity to impose himself. That's a win for Khabib. It's going to be a confidence boost for Khabib. I don't think Conor wanted to give him that going into this, especially knowing that Khabib was on weight. So, as we head into the fight, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Considering now that both fighters are on weight easily, comfortably, they've both said what they needed to say. The crowd will be incredibly hostile to Khabib, but he'll probably savor that fact. It's down to it now. Stylistically, is the wrestling going to win? Is the knockout punch going to win? Is Conor able to utilize a bit of pace, some distance, that toe poke kick that Chael Sonnen keeps talking about, straight punches that Khabib is going to struggle to dodge? Or is Khabib going to be able to pile on the pressure, take him down, do damage, maul him over a succession of rounds? It remains to be seen, but my prediction stands. First round will be cagey, it'll be trepidatious from both fighters. You might not see a lot of offense from either fighter. Second round, Conor is going to attempt to impose himself by staying off the cage, poking those kicks, maintaining distance, setting the pace. Unfortunately, he's not renowned for his stamina. Khabib is known for his work rate. If he's happy to sit back and let Conor wear himself out for that round, he will then put the pace on for rounds 3, 4, and 5. He is the champion, and I see him picking up the win. The only danger with Khabib's strategy, and this is something I don't see a lot of people talk about at the moment, here's the danger with Khabib's strategy, and far be it from me to insinuate that the UFC would be favourable to Khabib over favourable to Conor over Khabib. I would never insinuate such a thing. However, if it comes down to a decision, and Conor has managed to scrape together 2 rounds, and Khabib clearly, but still, wins the remaining 3, and it goes to a decision, how much do you want to say that Conor still picks up the win? Really? He's signed a 6-fight deal. He originally was the champion at that division. Khabib has displayed he's not really been all that cooperative with the UFC. He's been accusing Dana, that's your boy, get him in the ring. This is what I'm going to do to your boy. I don't know. There might be some shenanigans. John Jones is back. 15-month suspension, having had a word with USADA. 15-month suspension, as opposed to 18, 24, 12. As everyone else keeps saying, it's strange because it's always been in 6-month increments. 15 months? Why? Why? Well, I'll tell you why, because it lines up with a couple of cards we're looking pretty thin on in the coming months. And he's already served a sizable length of suspension, and we can justify what we found in his system by posing this narrative so people can buy it and they can feel good about supporting him again. Damned if it's true or not. So far be, and again, if you want to look at the evidence, UFC put out a simulation of how the fight would go using the UFC 3 game. Conor beat the shit out of Khabib. Beat the shit out of him according to the simulation, knocks him out cold. You want to look at the favoritism, even the perceived favoritism from Khabib. Does interviews. Very stoic answers, not very personable or friendly. I get that might just be his character, but at the very end of most of his interviews, he turns to leave almost immediately. Doesn't sit and exchange the pleasantries for any longer than he absolutely has to. That tells me he's not comfortable. That tells me that the UFC probably don't like the prospect of him being champion, especially when it means sacrificing their cash cow to him. So, if you want my honest opinion, I genuinely think that Khabib needs to win the fight 4 rounds to 1 at the very least. He really can't afford to let Conor win more than 2 rounds. He can't afford to let him win more than 1 round. Obviously, he wins more than 2 rounds. He's won 3 and he wins the fight. But more to the point, if he wins 2, that leaves the door open for the UFC judges to let Conor nick it on a technicality of some description. So, we'll see. But yeah, prediction still stands. Khabib for the win. First round cagey, second round Conor attempts to assert himself. Rounds 3, 4, 5, we see what we've seen a million times from Khabib. Ground and pound, mauls the hell out of him. And then we'll see what happens from there. The Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder fight has been announced. I will do more on that at some stage once I've had a chance to analyse their fights more thoroughly. I've focused most of my attention on analysing the Conor McGregor Khabib Nurmagomedov fight. Previous to that, Joshua versus PurpleFog. So once this fight is done and done, I'll do more on the Deontay Wilder fight versus Tyson Fury, because I already have a pretty good idea of how the fight's going to go, but I want to see it for myself in my mind, and the only way you can do it is by watching old fights. Turning to Halcyon, I want to give people an idea of what to expect, because for the first time ever, I actually have a schedule. Videos that are all good and ready to go, that have been uploaded, that will be released without fail at 12 o'clock UK time on every Monday and every Wednesday for the next 4 weeks, and then every Monday for the next month or two after that. So you've got a number of different shows. You've got blinks on things like Fortnite, Mortal Kombat, Pokemon Stadium, V for Vendetta, Ride Along, Star Wars, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, all sorts. You'll also, like I say, be getting videos on Wednesday as well. There's a couple of Razor reviews, again on Star Wars. You've got another Razor review on a couple of other bits and bobs. You've also got top fives lists. I'm still rendering and making a few of those, so they'll be coming. And the plan is to have a video for every Monday and every Wednesday between now and Christmas. Every single week, without fail, you're going to get 2 videos, Monday and Wednesday. Podcasts will likely be situated towards the back end of each week, Friday, Saturday or Sunday, depending on when I have time to sit and record them, and depending on when I have had time to properly digest and analyse the topics that I want to talk about. So in an ideal world, you'll be getting 3 videos a week for the next few months. So I really hope that you give them a try. I really hope that you leave me some feedback and you interact with me on these videos, because I do put a lot of effort into them, and I do try my best to make them as entertaining and as polished as I can. I will be redesigning some of the shows in the weeks to come, specifically the intros and outros, to make the shows a bit more watchable. I appreciate that people have given me feedback on the shows with respect to the fact that they feel that the intros are too long, or that the graphics are too choppy. The pace of the video sometimes feels off. I appreciate that, and I'm trying my best to try and curtail those problems and accentuate the positives, which I feel has always been, it looks pretty slick, my show. I've got no qualms in saying that it looks pretty slick compared to other YouTube channels, and my presentation can do with some improvement, but I think some people like the fact that I go virtually off the cuff a lot of the time, like this podcast. I've got nothing written down except for my tweets. I try to give you it as straight up as I can, so that there's no BS, and you always getting an honest opinion, 100% off the cuff. That's where I like to be, right on the raggedy edge, because I think that's when you get the best stuff. So again, just to recap, Mondays, Wednesdays, and then the back ends of each week, you'll be getting at least 2 videos for the next month. Hopefully I'll be able to produce enough to make videos up to the back end of the year, and then from there we'll see where we go. I really need the channel to pick up in terms of success and in terms of views, so the content's going to be there, but it's you guys, you that are listening to this. I really need your help in terms of getting the word out, sharing this with as many people as you can, telling people why you like the show, liking and subscribing and all the rest of that good jazz. It really makes a difference to me. I can't tell you how much it makes a difference to me to see even a video go into double digits. I know that sounds crazy, but some videos, when they only get 4, 5, 6 views, it hurts, because I put a lot of effort into these videos, but that's not the barometer for success. It doesn't matter how hard I work, it's whether or not they're entertaining. And I need you guys to help me so I can give you exactly what you want to see, because I really want to give it to you. Giggity. So to bring this podcast to a close, Super Showdown, kind of a mess show. Conor Khabib, what do you think? Are you excited for it? Are you watching are you watching the event? Are you watching it with friends? Are you watching it with family? Are you going to watch it the next day? Are you paying for it? Are you illegal? Are you finding another avenue to watch it? Because of course I'm not advocating live streaming it or anything like that. That would be naughty and illegal. And if you have a link, you absolutely must not send it to me. Are you excited for any other sporting events coming up? Are there any other YouTube channels you think I should be checking out? Is there anyone I should be supporting? Is there anyone I should be lending my support to? Is there anyone that could do with some help in terms of getting started as a YouTuber? What little advice I have to impart, I'm more than happy to impart it on people, because hey, if someone could be a success as a result of the measly advice that I can give, hell, I'd be a fool not to give it. So please, thank you very much for watching. Please, thank you. Okay, fair enough. interesting. Again, yet to grasp fully the English language, but never mind. Please take care of yourselves. Thanks very much for watching this episode, and thanks very much for listening to this podcast. I've been your host, Lorne Risley. Please like, share, subscribe. Check out some of the other content creators in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, and as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys on the next edition of the Halcyon podcast.